I'm Lucas,
And I'm Russell.
and you're
And
listening.
you're listening to Sad Boy Podcast.
Yeah, sad boy.
Sad Boy Podcast.
Three, two, one.
Welcome back to the Sad Boy Podcast.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
This is our 60th episode.
It's our 60th episode.
Yeah.
For new milestones.
Yeah, new milestones. And today we do have a guest, just like Lucas said last week.
Yes.
Hello, Winnie.
Hey,
I guess
hey
it's Winnie.
everyone.
Yeah. So I guess for people who don't know, I guess Winnie, you can give like a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm currently an undergrad studying math at Waterloo, business at Laurier. I'm about 4 months until I'm done my undergrad, and then I'm about to enter into corporate finance for full time.
Ooh, math.
Okay. Wow.
It's funny because back when I was applying for university, I actually got into Waterloo for math as well, even though it was like completely different because I was applying for business too.
Wow, okay. But you didn't end
Oh.
up going through to that path?
No, because I know my marks were pretty bad going into university, so I just went with the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. Because back then they had this thing called pre-management, which is like it's like their management program, but it's like a trial version, but you pay the full price. So what happens is like in the first year, I think that over 50% of those students usually either get kicked out of university or they switch paths.
Oh, okay, like a filtration process.
Yeah, so then like after I think like a year or two after I got in, they got rid of the pre-management thing because a lot of people was like criticizing the University of Toronto for like, this is like a cash grab for them. So then they stopped the whole thing and then
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the IB
okay.
program.
yeah. But yeah,
That's like
So you-
Rotman's, but not Rotman's.
basically.
You have the Rotman experience without the Rotman name.
Yeah, basically.
Alright.
So how's the school and everything so far with COVID?
Oh, it's definitely different, and it's, in my personal opinion, not for the better.
Mhm.
Because the part about undergrad that I really like is the moving between classes and this feeling of getting to meet new people, meet new
Mhm.
professors, and that intimate experience that you're not really getting anymore. As
Yeah.
much as the universities are trying to stimulate that, it's not really there anymore, and you feel very distanced from the general learning opportunities and education that you had previously gotten when everything was in person, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. So what got you into like going to Waterloo for math, and what inspired you to kind of go into like finance?
I actually wanted to become a high school math teacher. And at the time that I was applying for undergrad, the job market for Ontario high school teachers was pretty bleak. So I
Mhm.
wanted to go into a more general field instead of just straight into teaching. And I thought math and business could be my two teachables.
Okay.
And then through the co-op program, I just discovered finance. And then I went down this rabbit hole and haven't really looked back since. I'm still thinking about going into teaching in the long term, but for now, in terms of stability and the co-op experiences I've gathered, finance seems to be the right option for me.
Is it hard?
Yeah.
Because I know like from when I was in university, I had a lot of people who were in finance and they'd always be like crying because the exams were so hard for them.
The exams for the finance undergrad program?
Yeah, like
Um,
even UT, they were already crying about the finance exams.
I've definitely shed a few tears here and there, but nothing like bawling. Like I wasn't tearing my hair out, but it was tough. I don't know. My philosophy is that the best things in life are worth the work, and you have to work hard to get the best things out of life. And so I'm
Oh,
okay
good
doing the
mindset.
hard work.
That's a good
For
mindset.
sure. Yeah, it is. It really is. Like, it's I don't know. Like, I feel like for nowadays, like the way I see like a lot of I guess younger people, just from the internet, I guess like a lot of them don't like hard work anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of with the whole COVID thing. The government's giving out like I guess like the CERB money, and then like I guess a lot of them, not all of them, but like there's quite a handful of them who are like kind of willing to not do anything and just receive that money. So in my opinion, just from what I'm seeing, I'm like, oh, like are these people like they don't like hard work anymore? Like they don't understand, hard work pays off kind of thing. So
It's also human nature, though, right? To want to take the easy way out and just to do whatever is the easiest
Yeah.
option. Like this, I don't know if you know are familiar with like the 80-20 mindset that consultants often use, where you want to get maximal value for the minimal amount of input.
Yeah.
So it could also just be like a personality shift, in addition to the generational shift as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So there's actually this one interesting thing that we're gonna talk about. So you said you actually went on exchange to Singapore last year.
I did, yes, at the start of the pandemic in 2020.
How was that?
So I went, I would say like December 2019 to Shanghai, where my mother, I forget the term, motherland. I was born in Toronto, Canada. My parents are from Shanghai, and so I go back every 5 or so years just to see my relatives there, and I have a really big family there. So
Mhm.
I went back in December
Okay.
2019. Things were pretty normal. There wasn't much talk about COVID or a pandemic in general.
Mhm.
And then I went to Singapore in January 2020, and the first signs of COVID appeared, I would say, around February, late January, early February. So before the Western news outlets started talking about the pandemic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But even then, Singapore is known to be a very clean country, and so there were hand sanitization stations. There was a little bit more precautions taken into place, and people were talking about just going out a little bit less than usual. But everything was still pretty much the same as it was pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
It really only started to impact me, I would say, in maybe March, when I was thinking about traveling to Vietnam for the March break that we had. And March break in Singapore is about a week long, whereas in Waterloo, it's usually just like a few days. So it's like a big
Oh,
deal in
really?
Singapore.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
4 days in Waterloo or something like that.
yeah, it's super
Oh.
short. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to go to Vietnam, and all of my friends were going as well, but there was the pandemic, and a lot of the airports were pretty, they didn't have a lot of people, and people were talking about, not traveling as much anymore. And yeah, so I was debating going to Vietnam. I was $300 in, and then my mom was calling me, and she was like, "I really don't want you to go." Mind you, she was in Canada. She was miles away and literally had no control over whether or not I would hop on that plane or not. But
Mhm.
for some reason, she was able to control me, and I didn't end up going on that plane, even though I was $300 in, and I had paid for a lot of the amenities in Vietnam.
Mhm.
And so that was the first signs of COVID actually impacting what my life would be looking like. And then come April, May-ish, I started to get emails from my school, so Waterloo, and they were emailing me and telling me to come home, and that they would subsidize part of the air travel as well. And so I cut my exchange a little bit short. I was supposed to go until the end of April. I came back to Canada at around the beginning of April. I forget the exact dates, but it was around like late March, beginning of April. And I came back to Canada, did the 14-day quarantine, and everything was okay.
Oh, but did you just like quarantine at home? Oh, that wasn't. The hotels weren't ready yet, right?
Yeah.
They were not, no. I luckily had a second place, so there was the home that my family was living in, and then we have a place downtown that was completely empty, and so I just quarantined there.
Okay, that's
Uh,
pretty fortunate.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
crazy though,
Yeah.
because it's
But
like
like
we see so much of like the news of like people who were, I guess, traveling like during 2020, and then a lot of them got kind of stranded because
Yeah.
of COVID. That's
yeah.
scary.
Yeah, I was scared about that as well, which is kind of why I booked the plane tickets, because you saw that the number of options for planes were slowly dwindling down, and also
Oh
prices were
yeah.
skyrocketing
Yeah.
just because of demand and supply.
Oh yeah. It's scary. But the thing is, like, I think even if you went to Vietnam, I think it'd actually be pretty safe because right now Vietnam has like 0 cases.
Yeah, looking at it now, well, even in the beginning, Vietnam barely had any cases because they
Yeah,
actually took it seriously.
because
And
they locked down so fast.
and you're probably better off in Singapore than in Canada, anyways. But I guess
That's
your mom
right now.
yeah,
Totally.
but I guess your
Right?
mom wanted you to be at home as well.
Yeah, she did. But
Yeah.
also Vietnam is known for not having very good documentation, so there might also just be undocumented COVID cases. Not
That's
too
true.
sure what the process is like there.
Yeah. I just know like right now Vietnam is like everything's completely back to normal because I have a friend who's like working there. He basically said that the only people wearing masks are the employees at restaurants or whatever. That's it. No one else needs to
Yeah.
wear a mask. Like there's 0 cases. Even if there is one case, immediately they take action and lock down everything, restrict everything. Like they're disciplined. But at the same time, it's also like they have to be disciplined, because if they're not, I'm pretty sure the government's not going to hesitate to like just shoot you in the head kind of thing.
That's
So
true.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
but true.
different story.
Yeah.
They know. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it, otherwise I might piss off some people. So it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I even have some friends in Vietnam just like still going to clubs and bars and stuff, which is pretty pretty jealous about that, but what can we do, right?
I mean, hey, you know, here in Toronto, if you still want to go to a bar or club, if you know someone, I'm pretty sure you can still get in.
That's true.
Because I mean, like I was just reading like the news earlier, right? Like restaurants in Barrie, apparently they're all opening. They don't care. They're doing dine-in. There was a video of a health inspector there telling them to shut down, and then everyone in the restaurant just told that lady to leave. Like no one is caring up there at this
Oh,
point.
is this a clip from Six Buzz?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing about that, they could just like fine you anyway. They'll just come back to fine you. They don't really care, I guess. I don't know what the
Yeah, they'll
story
find
about
them.
that is, but
They'll find them for sure.
yeah, I don't know the story about that outside of that club, so
Yeah.
it's
But yeah, Singapore is probably doing way better than here anyways.
you can
Yeah,
always go
it's
back to
wild.
Singapore, right? Probably
Yeah.
not, actually.
Now, probably not.
No,
No.
probably not.
I don't know, because I mean airports are still really full.
That's true.
I think with if you're trying to fly to Asian countries, I think technically if you have connection with someone in power or if you have money, I'm pretty sure you can still fly anywhere you want. I mean, like the Caribbeans are open to people flying to them right now.
Are you talking about that minister of
Not just the
finance?
minister. There's so many people flying to the Caribbeans right now for vacation.
That is true. Also, like the typical vacation destinations like Hawaii, Cuba.
Yep. They're
those are
all
still-
open.
Yeah, being
Yeah.
in Hawaii would be nice right now. But it's okay.
It's
I
fine.
guess.
We're already heating up over here in Toronto.
They know Hawaii.
So there's another thing that I was actually gonna talk to you about, Winnie. So I guess leaning towards the relationship stuff now. So you know we had that little small talk before the podcast, and you mentioned that you actually were auctioned off in SAT GTA.
I
So
was,
how,
yeah.
how did that stuff come to be?
I'm trying to think about the exact time frame of that. It was definitely early on in my university, so maybe like third year, I want to say. So about 2-ish years ago, 2+
So
years
when
ago.
SAD blew up, kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. But I didn't do it on the main page. So for those of you who don't know, there's like the SAD main page, and then there's like the SAD for the subset sectors of certain geographical locations. So I was in the Toronto one, which is a little bit smaller and doesn't get as much traction, and there's a little bit less auctioning. It's more just like memes. But I was auctioned off of there, thanks to my friends. And when you're looking at a lot of these posts, I think a lot of these photos are chosen in a certain way and are taken in a certain way to portray a certain image. I was conscious to not portray that image, and as a result, I mean, I might just be biased and I might just be hypocritical, but I think that's why I didn't get as much traction as some of the other posts did.
Mm-hmm.
Did you auction yourself, or did your friends auction you?
My friends auctioned me.
Yeah, with those posts, I think it's like the same with dating apps, where like they have these, I guess, quote unquote gurus, and they would always talk about like you need like, you know, these kind of photos and these kind of photos, and it's like it doesn't showcase who a person really is.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I think for guys, from what I know, on the psychology side, I was told like, oh, for dating apps you should have like, you know, a shirtless pic if your body is good, or kind of thing. And it's like, but
who's telling you that? That's so weird, because
It-
I would
wait,
not be
what?
receptive to that.
yeah, no,
Wait,
typical
what?
people will not, but like apparently I guess when it comes to, I guess for people who want to hook up, I guess that would work. But it's just like from psychology side, like you should have at least one photo like that, one photo with you hanging with your friends, a really good, I guess, portrait photo. Like there's like certain photos that apparently statistically can generate more attention, kind of thing.
So you're telling me I should have shirtless photos? All right,
If you
no
got a
thanks.
dad bod, show off that dad bod, man.
Done.
I guess it's the same for like I guess like for females. I think there are people saying like, oh, you should have like, I think from what I've seen back then was like there's a lot of girls with like beach photos.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some with like pets. Like there's so many different types, I guess, of photos that like oh, this photo gets more attention than this one. Like it's just, it's to me like it's not realistic at all when it comes to like these auction posts. So it's like, yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, like even getting like, if you don't get a lot of responses and everything, like, I feel like it is detrimental to self-esteem and mental health too. So like me personally, I'm not a huge fan of like the whole auctioning or dating apps or anything.
Yeah, I definitely think it was an interesting concept to start off with, like this idea
Yeah.
of a new virtual dating and just a different way to meet new people.
Yeah.
But also, at least the reasons why I did it wasn't a very healthy reason, which was kind of just external validation from complete strangers. And I didn't end up getting that. And so it ended up sending me down a spiral of like, oh, I'm not getting external validation, thus there must be something wrong with me. And then you just go down this rabbit hole.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Though like I like, it's like I think everyone's gone through that phase of like they want that validation. And it's like I think as you grow older, I think you start realizing that you don't need that extra validation, because everything regarding validation starts with you as an individual. I think that's when people start growing a lot more.
Yeah, I agree for the most part, but I think you do need some external validation. I think
Mhm.
humans need both internal and external validation. I think internal is more sustainable and
Yeah.
it's easier to, well, no, not necessarily easier, but once you've harnessed and figured out a way to create that internal validation, is a lot easier to continue with because you're there for yourself. But when you
Mhm.
have external validation, you're relying on a third party that you can't control. So that becomes
Mhm.
harder to rely on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, so taking in when you said, it's, I guess it's like shifting what I said, which is basically like, don't put too much pressure on yourself for external validation.
Yeah,
Like we'll need it, but it's not like, 100% of your life kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
And
so hard to get to that stage of
oh,
not
I
wanting to
know.
rely on external.
And I don't know if like this is true, but I feel like us growing up Asian, like external validation is a pretty big part of our lives too.
You mean that we got a lot of external validation, or
Like us
We get
seeking
little.
a lot. Because
oh,
it's
for
like,
sure.
yeah, because growing up Asian, it's like we're constantly trying to seek validation from our parents first. So then some people go down this path of like they drop everything they want to do and they're only doing what their parents want them to do just to kind of get that validation from them.
Yeah,
It,
I definitely felt the lack of validation.
I
Yeah.
guess it would make it worse if if your parents would just compare you to like a cousin or a family's friend's son. It just makes you feel bad, so you would want that like extra validation.
Oh, for sure.
From
Have you experienced that, Winnie, where your parents just like compared you to, I guess, your siblings or their friends or whatever?
or
Yeah,
cousins.
for sure. I have an older sister of 3 years, so it's pretty easy to make that comparison because we're in relatively the same stages of our life.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I remember when I was applying for high school. Looking back, like it was such a petty little thing, and it didn't actually matter in the grand scheme of things. But when you're in high school or like in middle school, about to apply for high school, there's like certain accelerated programs that are supposed to set you up really well in life and university and beyond. And I didn't get into the program that my sister had gotten into, which was supposed to be one of the top-notch high school programs. And then I kept on getting compared, and every single time, like another middle schooler was asking my mom for advice, she'd be like, "Oh, go to the school that my sister went to. Don't go to the school that Wendy ended up going to." And it's just that comparison that started getting into my own head where it's like, oh, I'm worth less than my sister because I didn't get into that one school.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. Wait, Lucas, how is your sister? Wait, hold on. I need to reword this question. Sorry.
Wait.
Words are appearing in my head, but sentences are not forming. How much older is your sister compared to you?
She's 13 years older than me.
Oh, she's 13
So
years older?
yeah, she's 13 years older than me. So she's oh shit, she's 40 now. Okay.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, that's all.
I didn't know your sister was that old.
Oh, well, all right. Well, now you know. But yeah, like even I get that too. Even though she's like we're not the same age, but she's also a lot older than me. That like she would be doing like a lot better than me in like career wise. When she was my age than what I am now. Except like going to teacher school, becoming a teacher, and like having a family, having her own house. Even when she's younger than me, like when she was younger than me than I am now. So it's kind of sucks because yeah, it just kind of sucks.
Have you guys at any point felt that the way your lives, the negative parts of like our lives, it was all because of our parents' fault?
I don't think that's fair to say. I think. Sorry,
Okay,
go ahead.
the reason why I ask it is because like I've seen, because I'm part of the subtle Asian mental health, and I've seen a lot of posts where these people grew up in an environment where their parents were similar to how what we're talking about, our experiences, and then they somehow have this resentment towards their parents because of that. And I've always been someone who kind of says like, it's not their fault for doing it, is that back then that's what they knew and that's what they thought was the best way for us, right? But compared to now, where all of us are more knowledgeable in terms of different ways of parenting or behavioral, how we interact with one another, we realize that their way was not the best, and we have to grow from it. So that's why I'm asking, like, have you guys ever had that experience of like, something happened and like your parents, I guess, compared you to, for example, like Winnie, your parents compared you to your sister? Like, did you have at any point had this feeling of like resentment towards your parents for doing that?
There was definitely some degree of resentment, but it also made me a very ambitious person because it was like, oh, I want to prove them wrong. I want to show that I can actually get to a good university regardless of the high school that I ended up going to. And so that also plays a role into some of the good characteristics of who I am today and the positions that I've gotten to today as well. But just going back to the earlier question of can you blame all of your negative character traits on your parents? And I think that's unfair because any relationship is two-way.
Yeah.
So despite them having a little bit more authority over you because they are your parents and them kind of shaping who you are a little bit more, it's still not fair to blame that entirely on them because you could have done something differently. You could have communicated them with a little bit more. You could have reached out to people outside of your parents and looked at other people as examples. I don't think it's fair to blame entirely on your parents. I think there's definitely some degree that you can blame, but not 100%.
Yeah, that's
for
a
sure.
pretty good answer. What about you, Lucas?
I'd say it's not 100% their fault. It's easy to blame others for like how you act in the future and the reason to it. But it's also up to us whether like we could change that and forgive that resentment of how they raised us, right? Because like the only person who has control over our lives and our mental health is, well, mostly our lives rather than mental health, is us. And our parents would just be like another factor in it, especially when we are adults now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was just something I was curious about because like we've had a guest on here who's basically talked about how especially in the Asian household, we grew up in a pretty authoritative household environment. So like, yes, in a way, like even for me, I've had my fair share of times where like I realized, oh, these certain traits is because my parents caused this to happen, right? And I spent a few years where I was like, oh my god, like this is all my parents' fault. And then after a while, it's kind of like, this is my life and it's my destiny and all that stuff. Like it's up to me to become who I want to be, not
Yeah.
how my parents dictated my life or whatever. Because they did dictate quite a bit. So like when Winnie, you were talking about the high school stuff, it just made me remember how my brother went to a high school that had, you know, like the PACE program, AP program. The school has been around for a while. So for universities, there's a certain reputation. But there was this other high school that I wanted to go to because all my friends were going to. So I applied for both. And what happened was when the school board called my house to ask me if I still wanted to apply for both high schools, my mom actually picked up the phone without me knowing and told them to withdraw my application to the high school that I wanted to go to.
Oh, rip.
Wow.
Yeah. So like she didn't tell me this until I was almost done high school, and she's like, "Oh, like aren't you glad, you know, I withdrew your application that you went here instead?" And at the time I was kind of pissed off because I'm like, you didn't even let me choose. I was like, what the hell? And during the how, like I said, like there was like some resentment, but at the same time, like it's like, through these different experiences, good or bad, it's helped me build who I am. So it's like in a way, I wasn't happy about it, but at the same time, it's like I'm thankful that it happened this way.
Yeah.
If you look back, would you have wanted to go to the other high school, like even now, or
With my
if you could
knowledge
change
now,
it?
going back, no, because all the people that I knew that went to that high school, I'll say that they are very privileged and entitled, and I feel like if I continued to hang out with them, I would have became one of those entitled privileged assholes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So for the people who are listening that actually did go to this high school that I'm talking about, I'm sorry.
So you're less privileged and entitled than you are now. Nice.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Because like the high school that I went to, it taught me how to be more humble in a
Okay.
way. Because the high school that I wanted to go to, I'll say that those people, their families, they were all wealthy. Like they were literally driving Porsches, exotic cars, and shit in grade 12 already. And they were living this life where they didn't really have much responsibility either. But I get that when you're young, you have less responsibility, but they lived a life where they almost had like zero responsibility. And I feel like if I continued on that path, it would not have been a good thing.
So I guess middle
Okay.
school you was okay with that lifestyle, right? Or at least you maybe wanted to live that lifestyle.
That privileged life.
Yeah, because there must have been a reason why you wanted to go to that school.
The reason why I wanted to, so in grade 9 and 10, I still hung out with them. It wasn't until like around mid to end of grade 10 that I started to realize that the people that we began to hang out with even more was like, you know, the rich people in that high school. Like it was to the point where we knew that there's this one kid who I was actually like friends with because he's pretty humble, but like his family was probably like the richest one in the high school. So it was funny because no one would ever bully him or do anything because they knew that his family was so powerful.
Okay.
And then you have like all these other families who like they had money and they would bully other people, but they'd still never bully the super rich kid.
This sounds like a K-drama.
Yes, it was.
It sounds like that
totally-
K-drama hairs.
Yes, it was. And then there was just me who was like visiting from another high school all the time.
All right.
Yeah, so
Or
that,
like
that
this-
was
Or like Boys Over Flowers or whatever. I don't even know.
basically.
Honestly, any K drama, they're all relatively. People might hate me for saying this, but they're all relatively the same plot.
Oh, they
Yeah.
are. They are.
Yeah. It's okay. We all know that.
Yeah, it's like it's fine if people like it, but like you said, like all these K dramas, it's one of the biggest reasons why I stopped watching K dramas because it's like it's the same shit every single time. There's always a poor defenseless girl, and then there's this rich dude that comes out of nowhere, and then they at first hate each other, and then they like each other. It's the same story, and then there's always the guy's best friend who likes the girl too, and he always watches from afar, and he's really sad.
You
But
just
he's too
described
poor.
like 200
Yeah.
K-dramas.
Yeah, so that's why like when I watch K dramas, it has to be one that's like, you know, like the love story is not the main focus of it. Like it has to be something else.
All right.
because it gets too cringy when it's just focused on those love stories. We've watched too much Lee Min Ho dramas, okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, going back to that high school thing.
Yeah.
I guess you're done with it now. It's all right.
Yeah. We've all moved on. And I think also once you get into university, I think that's when someone actually grows the most. Because when you're
Yeah.
in high school and elementary school, your world is still kind of confined. And then when you go into university, you meet such a wide variety of different types of people that your experiences grow a lot.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I was actually going to compliment Winnie on is that you're someone who seems very, very well articulated in your thoughts.
I get that, but that's so interesting
Yeah.
because I don't think I am at all. Internally, I feel like I am not communicating my thoughts as eloquently or as cohesively as I'd like, but I appreciate that. Thanks for saying that.
To us, you're doing like a really good job because
Yes.
as you saw or listened to earlier, I can't even formulate proper sentences in my head at times. Words just appear.
The pandemic has gotten to us all in terms of communication and being able to speak to other humans.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. How
I
do
talk to myself
how do I
quite a
talk to
bit.
people?
I form words and I talk like a caveman at home. But yeah, I was gonna actually say something else. Did I just lose my train of thought? Oh right, no, I got my train of thought back. Have you guys ever had a moment where you constantly think or thought that you were not good enough? So it's kind of similar to how you said, like, in your head you feel like you're not, articulating your thought as well, but then to us, like, you are. Is that imposter syndrome?
I think that is imposter syndrome, or
Okay,
at
yeah.
least a symptom of it.
Yeah. Have you guys ever had that experience?
Yeah, I've definitely
Yeah.
experienced it. Not just like during my academic career, but also like the co-op opportunities and in a way also just being within my family where there's so much pressure and so much desire for you to succeed. There's definitely a lot of pressure, I think, and an imposter syndrome within all aspects of my life for sure.
What about you, Lucas?
I guess so because because my dad would always want me to be like a denturist, and I would be like, I do not want to.
You
So I
didn't
would
want to
just
look at
rather.
teeth.
I don't want to look into other people's mouths, man. But yeah, I would just like force myself to like look at something else or just focus on other career paths and whatnot.
A computer screen.
A computer screen, yes.
How do you get over that conversation though? That conversation with your parents where you just clash in terms of what the definition of success is?
Either I would just say nah, no, or I just straight up ignore them. Because I come to a point where I'm like my mom just like nagging at me or lecturing me. I would just zone it out. I would just like, let's hear it, but I'm not really listening.
To be fair, that's similar to me because my parents have, when I was younger, they would nag me a lot, and it was to the point where like they're also like not always appreciative of my efforts. So like they'd always be like, just do your best, and then I get like an 80 or 90 something on a quiz, and they're just like, that's it. And I'm like, I don't know how much higher you want to go with the number. Like, it goes to 100, but that's it. But like it got to a point where it's you kind of just let them say their piece because I'll be honest, in my family, I think I clash the most with my mom now because she has her opinions on certain things, and then apparently when I give my opinions, she considers that as me talking back.
Yep.
And then we just stop talking. So for me now, it's just like I'll let you say your piece or whatever. It'll come in one ear, go out the next ear, and I'll just keep doing my thing. And then my dad, he says that he just trusts me now, but I don't know if it's that because like he just gave up on me. I don't know. I don't 100% know, but like yeah, like me and my parents, we don't really talk a lot about that stuff anymore, and it might also be my fault because me growing up, I never really talk to them much about my life either. I kept a lot of my life, I guess, secret from them. So it's like they don't even know that I'm doing this podcast. They don't really know what I'm doing in my life, kind of thing. Um, but for the people listening, I would say like this isn't that healthy way to do it. I encourage people to communicate with their parents and don't do what I do.
Listen to our advice, but don't do what we do. Basically.
Yeah, yeah, we're examples of what not to do, basically.
I think I reached a point with on my relationship on my parents. They just give me the freedom I want instead of just expecting me on what to succeed nowadays.
Yeah, I think
And
it might also be because like so me and Lucas are both 28 this year. So maybe it's also like that as a factor. Like, hey, you know what? Our kids are at this certain age.
don't say that, I'm
Like,
old.
I know I'm old too. You're old before me because your birthday's before me.
Okay.
Small
But
nuances.
yeah, but it's like I think it really is like age is a factor. Like we're at a point where it's like they know that they can't really, I guess, quote unquote, control what we're doing anymore. So it's like they just give us that freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to change that relationship though to having a more open communication and being able to tell them about other aspects of your life?
Ideally, yes. Like I'm pretty open. So like I do have a therapist and I do talk to them and I try to like figure out how to improve that relationship with my parents. Because a few years ago, me and my dad clashed a lot because during this time I got very into working on cars, like engine parts and everything. And I would always ask my friend who was more knowledgeable. But then my dad was, I guess, in a way, he was kind of getting jealous that I wasn't asking him and I was asking someone else. And we clashed quite a bit. But then after a while, I realized it was because at home I speak Cantonese with them, so like I'm pretty fluent. But it's just that there are certain terms that they say in Cantonese that I don't understand, and because I only know that term in English. So then there's also like a huge miscommunication. And when I realized, I finally told them like, hey, you know what? Like it's not that I don't want to ask you guys for help. It's just that I know these terms in English. That's why it's better for me to ask my friend who I speak English with. So it's easier for me to understand rather than me speaking one language and you're speaking another and we just can't reach a middle ground. So like there's certain things as time goes on that I realized and I kind of let them know. I think during that time I also kind of told them like actually no, I told them like a few months ago like there's a reason why I don't tell them anything is because that I guess another negative thing on the parents is that they somehow always jump to the most negative conclusion possible for any situation I tell them. So because of that, I kind of stopped. I told them like that's one of the biggest reasons why I don't tell them anything. So it's like I was doing something. Okay, this is, I can't really say what I was doing because it's slightly illegal. But
Wow.
I was like doing something, and I kind of told them like just casually, and then immediately I just got a lecture from my mom, and then my dad was kind of lecturing me, and I'm just like, "Yep, I'm not saying anything anymore. Peace out."
Okay.
So like we clashed quite a bit. Hence why like I don't necessarily tell them much. Like overall broad stuff I tell them, but like more in-depth detail stuff I just kind of figure it out on my own. Yeah.
Do you think your parents are trying to change though? Like it seems like they're still pretty close-minded and that they're still jumping to his conclusions. Like they're not trying to have a more open relationship with you despite them wanting to know more about your life.
I think for them, I think change is a bit difficult for them only because it's that thing where like it's easier to change yourself than other people, right? So for them, it's kind of like they've maintained the same habits and thinking through their whole lives that it's going to be very difficult for me to I guess improve or change certain things so that we can communicate better. Even I guess this might be a bit controversial, but like my parents are the more very traditional parents, Asian parents. So like they're against like the LGBTQ and all that stuff, right? So like even with that stuff, I don't really have a conversation with them anymore, because it's like, in their old traditional thinking, they think that it's like a mental illness. But then for me and like, you know, everyone around us, it's kind of like, you know, if they want to do what they want to do, like, like, we don't really care, right? Like, we support them as long as everyone's happy. But my parents are still stuck in like those kind of mindsets, so it's like there's certain things that I guess I could communicate with them to improve a little bit, but at the same time, like, my dad's also very socially awkward, so like every time when me and him are in the car and I'm driving, like, there's no conversation at all. um my mom, like I said, like, now we don't really have much conversations in the car either, because we clash quite a bit. So I don't know, I feel like the way my family works is like, the way my mom would always tell me is like, there are things that she notices that are bad, but she just doesn't want to say anything anymore, because she feels like if she calls one of us out or whatever about the bad thing that we did, it damages the relationship. But then in my head, I'm like, it's more damaging to leave things unsaid. But that's how they are at this point for so many years. So it's like, it's impossible to really talk to them about that. What
Yeah.
about you, Lucas?
Sorry, I kind of got lost in my train of thought when you were talking. But for my, like, compared to your relationship with your parents compared to mine, I'd say my parents would be more open minded or receptive towards like LGBTQ and or whatever I want to do in my career now, right? Because like, because I'm not dating anyone. I'll just talk about dating, I guess. My parents would be like, if you're gay, it's okay. We still love you and all. So comparably, my parents are more open minded towards that. I'm not gay, by the way. Just putting that out there. So yeah, I'm just saying.
Thanks for that clarification.
What about you, Winnie?
I am not. I am straight as well.
That's
Oh wait, no, not that, not that.
Oh, you meant on the general topic. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely clash as well with my parents. And I can definitely relate to the feeling of just kind of an elephant in the room where you're on the car and just not having a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't hate awkward silences and awkward pauses. I think that actually when I'm with close friends and those happen, that I actually do appreciate those. But I just feel like I'm not at that stage of comfort where those awkward silences is not awkward. I just feel like there's so many things that I want to say to them, but I'm scared of what will happen if I say it to them. I would like to have a deeper relationship with them, and I'd like to have them as kind of a friend as opposed to just an authoritarian figure in my life that kind of dictates certain things that I can and cannot do despite me believing that I should be able to stand up for myself. I somehow still listen to what they say for most of the times. But for some reason, and I think it might be similar to what you said, Russell, where the idea of like they jump the gun to certain conclusions, they've been raised in a certain way that this is kind of drilled into their head. I think there is an opportunity for them to change, but it'll be hard and it'll be an uphill battle. And sometimes you just have to decide which battles are worth fighting for, and oftentimes it's not worth it.
Yeah. Because I remember like I remember there's this thing that my mom said to me one time, like because this was like in elementary and high school, right? And when you're in that age and you have your friends around you, in your head you feel like, you know, we're gonna be friends forever kind of thing, right? I think my mom was basically telling me during that time was like, friends come and go, so like don't hold on to them that much. And as a kid hearing that, it's just like, what do you mean they're not going to be friends with me in 10 years? I mean, we're not friends anymore, but it's kind of true. It's because like, especially with my parents, like I think they've gone through like a few situations where like they had really close friends and then they were kind of backstabbed. So like for them in their experiences, they try to teach me like, hey, like don't get too close with people because that just increases the chance of them backstabbing you. But then I tell them like, the people growing up here is very different from the people that grew up in Asia. I get people in Asia that grew up in Asia may or may not do that, but typically people growing up in Canada here, I think they're more chill and casual. Obviously, there's here and there, like there are quote unquote bad people out there, but we can't always avoid people thinking that they're bad. And I've tried to, like, I guess, pass that message along to them, but again, like, my dad's like past retirement age, like they're getting there, so it's kind of like it is a very uphill battle, but at the same time I feel like at this point it's just, as long as they're happy, then I'm fine with it. So
Yeah, I guess maybe just within our cultures, it's not meant to be as open of a relationship as you see on the westernized Hollywood movies, like the Gilmore Girls, where they're like
yeah,
BFFs with each other, and maybe that's just the norm,
yeah.
and that's
But the
something we
good
just have to
thing
accept.
is that now that our generation knows, moving forward, as Asians here in Canada, US, I think we can be the ones to work towards that kind of relationship with our future generation.
Yeah, like we can set the
Yeah.
precedent for how we treat our kids and the relationship we have with our kids. Yeah.
Yep. Because even like I've thought about, like, if I had kids, like, totally I'd want to be like BFFs with them. Like, not to the point where I need to know every single thing. Like, we chill and we can talk about certain things and have open discussions about certain things. Like, that's what I ideally would want to, rather than just me being like 100% or you're dead, kid. And, that's not sustainable at all.
Yeah. I think it's also because we grew up in a westernized world. I think if you look at the more Asian countries, I think the kids that are raising their own kids, they're still passing down those values because of the environment and the culture that they grew up in. So there's definitely some influence with where we grew
Oh
up
yeah,
in.
oh yeah. I feel like that's where, like, a lot of clashing is. It's like we see our friends around us who live like this westernized culture growing up, and then we look at home, we're like, this is so different, but I want this. And you start
Yeah.
acting like that, and your parents are like, you're being disobedient. And then there's more clashing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think growing up Asian in America has been a challenge. But like I said, I think now that we know these things, we can kind of help direct the future generation to something better. Yeah, I'm not that good at articulating my thoughts, but along those lines. As long
Better
as
in your opinion, in our opinions, because
yes.
it's a very subjective way of looking at it. It could be not better in like someone who grew up in an Asian culture. It's just that
Oh
we
yeah, that's true.
believe that this is the way that we want to have a relationship with our kids because of the movies that we see and because of the people that we surrounded ourselves with. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
better in a subjective sense, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think this is the end of the episode. I'm just looking at the time right now.
It's at 47.
Yeah, so this is probably the end of it. We have enjoyed this conversation with you, Winnie. Like I said, you're very well articulated, and from what I remember, you're also working on a podcast too, right?
I am, and that was kind of the premise behind my own podcast as well. This idea of all this cultural clash and me wanting to figure out if other cultures also clashed with their parents as well. And so far what I'm finding is that there are some clashes as well, and there is some overlap. Despite people coming from different countries, there is some similarities between them. And that's kind of why I started my own podcast as well. Yeah.
Oh, what's the podcast called? So our listeners can also kind of jump on and listen to your podcast.
Yeah, so feel free to check out our Instagram page, which I'll have the link trees depending on where you listen to your podcast. So it's called @TheVoice Podcast. And
Okay.
it's a cool little acronym that stands for Voices of Immigrant Canadian Experiences.
Okay, that's awesome. No, we'll probably ask you to come back on
Yeah.
again, because I think we can get into like a lot of these deep conversations and topics as well as we go on. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come back and dive a little bit deeper into certain topics as well. This was fun.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for coming on, Winnie. So for listeners, please check out her podcast. I'll have her Instagram handle and everything in the description as well. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Russell.
Thanks for
Lucas.
Thanks for coming on.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Have a good day.
Or evening. I don't know. Goodbye.
Be kind.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Sad Boy Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and have a nice day, I guess.
Yeah, stay sad or happy.
Yeah.
Sad?
Happy.
Sad?
Sad
Happy?
boy.
Sad Boy Podcast.
Sad Boy Podcast. Good night.